Yes, please have a seat. Please have a seat. I'm glad you came so quickly. We, well, I have completed my examination of your daughter. I have some good news, and I'm afraid I have some bad news. Which would you like first? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, I see. Well, the good news is your daughter is not possessed. No. Yes, I am absolutely certain. Well, keep in mind, I am what is known as an inherited spiritualist. My mother was a spiritualist. My grandmother was a spiritualist. And my great grandmother was a spiritualist. With every generation, the abilities get passed down and they become stronger. Yes. Well, I'd rather not get into all of the things I've seen from the spirit world. It's not a place of fun and games. And quite frankly, I wish I wasn't an inherited spiritualist, but people wish for many things they can't have. Let's come back to the topic of your daughter. Again, based on my powers and abilities, I have determined that your daughter is not possessed. That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, I have further good news. The doll, the antique doll that your aunt purchased for your little girl, yes, the doll is not possessed either. Oh, you've seen the doll move. Well, let me ask you this. Have you actually seen the doll move right in front of your eyes? Or have you seen the doll change positions after you left the room and perhaps came back a few minutes later? Mm-hmm. 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 Well, there's a very simple explanation for that. Your daughter moved the doll's arms, legs, and head, and she's been doing that on a regular basis. Why? Well, I'm going to get into that. That's actually part of the bad news. Uh, I'm sorry. My sister, who also is an inherited spiritualist, is much better at these things than I am. Well, when it comes to breaking bad news to clients, that's what I meant. How can I put this? I mean, I know you're happy to hear that your daughter is not possessed, and her doll is also not possessed. But you are not going to hear. Well, you're going to hear it, but I don't think you're going to listen. Unfortunately, in such cases, similar to that of your daughter, my clients never listen. Oh, yes, that's the automatic air freshener. Well, my maid tells me that this room is a little stuffy, so I had that put in. Sorry if it startled you. But yes, getting back to the topic of your daughter and similar cases, how can I put this? All right, I'm not even going to try to be delicate. The bad news. Your daughter is not possessed. She doesn't have spirits or demons whispering to her to do bad things. She doesn't. The doll itself is not possessed. The doll is not trying to control your daughter. The doll is not telling her to do terrible things. Yes, your partner told me about what happened with the new puppy. Thankfully, it was just a broken leg. But the doll did not tell her to do that. It didn't. No. There's no possession within your daughter or the doll. But unfortunately, your daughter is being influenced. Your daughter does hear voices in her head. I'm sorry, but your daughter has a mental illness that causes her to hear voices. And because your daughter is so young, she doesn't realize that her mental illness is abnormal. She thinks it's perfectly normal. And due to having a typical child's imagination, well, your daughter thinks the voices are coming from her doll. That's why she seems to carry on one-sided conversations in front of you and your partner with the doll. I mean, I'm sure at first you probably thought it was adorable. Well, here's the thing, those are not one-sided conversations. When she speaks to her doll speaks back. Well, not really. Due to her mental illness, your daughter thinks the doll is speaking back to her. Her perception has become truth. It has become her reality. Her mental illness is what's causing the problem. And I can see by the look on your face that you're very upset with me, and you don't believe me. And unfortunately, I don't think you're gonna give your daughter the professional help she needs. And I don't mean professional as in, well, someone such as myself. I mean professional as in a psychiatrist. I mean, after all, it is easier to deal with possession. Call a priest, have an exorcism. It will be painful for the child, but it would be a one-time thing, and you're done. Instant cure. Or take the doll and burn it or bury it, and there we go. No more possessed doll. It doesn't really work that way, but that's what a lot of individuals believe. However, if your child is mentally ill, that's a lifetime of care. I mean, I'm sorry, but there really is no cure for mental illness. I mean, there are pills. There are always pills. And there's treatment to help suppress mental illness in some patients. But there's no cure. And like I said, it's a lifetime thing. I'm not trying to upset you, but the truth of the matter is, your daughter will very likely outlive you and your partner, and she'll still have to deal with this mental illness. Well, besides being an inherited spiritualist, I am a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, but I am a psychologist. A psychiatrist can prescribe drugs and is more highly regarded than a psychologist. But here's the thing, your daughter displays the classic symptoms of a split personality. She displays the classic symptoms of schizophrenia as well. Now, normally a split personality is caused by witnessing a traumatic event. And, oh, I see. Well, I am very sorry to hear that. I will admit, something like that could cause the split personality. The schizophrenia, it may have been there from the very beginning. Keep in mind, to your daughter, hearing voices in her head and with her imagination believing that they're coming from her doll seems perfectly normal. She's extremely young. The child doesn't have enough life experience, obviously, to realize that it's not normal. You're gonna have to get her some help. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, yes, I am familiar with that particular individual, and you could go to her But honestly, that's my sister's name, and she's going to tell you the very same thing I'm telling you. Your daughter is not possessed. The doll is not possessed. There are no spirits at work here. There is no demon at play here. Your daughter has a severe mental illness and needs help. The voices coming from her head, telling her to do horrible things like break that poor puppy's leg. She thinks the voices are coming from her doll, her best friend. She doesn't realize that what she did was wrong. Your daughter needs help. Your daughter is going to need continuous care. A one and done exorcism is not going to solve the problem. I see. Well, if you wish to waste your money talking to a bunch of other spiritualists, some of whom are con men, you have every right to do so, but they're not going to be able to help your daughter. She doesn't need a priest. She doesn't need an exorcism. She doesn't need a spiritualist. She needs a psychiatrist and possibly some medication. I hope you will seriously consider my words. Well, if you wish to leave, I can't stop you. But please, consider what I've said to you.